The best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmet's casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many. Get your tech. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, regroup. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just dropped. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday afternoon. It's a beautiful day here in Rhode Island where I'm located. Nice and sunny, and it's just a really nice day. And I'm excited to be back doing these live streams. It was a much needed little time off, but we're back, and we have a nice little slate tonight, 5 games, because the Boston and Islanders game got postponed tonight because of the coronavirus stuff that hit Boston a few days ago. So we do just have 5 games tonight, short little slate. If you are not currently a DFS Army member, if you use the code Mdell, you can save 10% on your VIP membership. Get in the Slack chat, ask us a bunch of questions, learn a whole bunch of new sports. Got guys crushing NASCAR, crushing PGA. All of our esports guys have been crushing with their content and just putting out winners every night. Every week with those weekly sports. So definitely want to get in and learn some new sports because there's definitely money to be made with some of these niche little sports. You guys are here watching live. Feel free to throw in any questions in the comments and I'll answer those as I go. If you're watching this later, thanks for watching. Lock starts at 7 tonight. So got about 3 hours until lock. I was able to get everything done early. So I wanted to get this done and out there. So if you can't watch it live, you still have some time to watch it before the slate locks tonight. But I'll show you guys the research station and kind of how I go through my process and how I went through my process with doing my sheet tonight. I have my other computer here kind of with my cheat sheet up and Flynn's cheat sheet up for Fanduel. I've been doing a lot more of DraftKings sheets and kind of getting a lot more involved with DraftKings, and I've been pretty successful. I've swept all my head-to-heads lately and cashing in some tournaments. The biggest thing, and I talked to Cam about this a lot, and he kind of got me a lot more into DraftKings. And the best thing about DraftKings is create your own head-to-heads, limit it to 1 per opponent so you don't get one guy taking all of them. And the chances of winning are so high because some people just make really bad lineups or they'll stack teams, and if that stack doesn't go off, then you're going to win, and it's going to definitely be an easy win for you. Like a couple nights ago, I had like one of my lowest scores, like 86, and I still won money because of those head-to-heads, and people just make funky lineups and doing that. Sebastian, what's going on, man? Any questions you have here? Throw in the comments and I'll be glad to answer them as I go. As always, I will go game by game with the breakdowns, and I'll go over a little bit of tier stuff at the end. Tier's a little tricky tonight with how we're going to stack things up. So we'll get right into it here, and we'll start with the New Jersey Devils at the Philadelphia Flyers. The Devils are projected 2.7 goals, the Flyers 3.4. Both of those numbers changed a little bit from this morning, but not too much. The Flyers come in as pretty big favorites. But we see Carter Hart against Mackenzie Blackwood. You can see here that both teams are kind of struggling over their last 10 games, both with scoring and with allowing goals. If you look over here at the Flyers, they're 30th in goals against in the last 10 games, which is so bad. They're allowing 4.5 goals a game. They're just 3-6-1. Their goalies are really struggling. Both Hart and Elliott are kind of going through a rough patch right now. We see Carter Hart tonight Not really interested in him for goalies in tournaments. He's just too blow-up prone. I have a little bit of interest in Mackenzie Blackwood for tournaments if you want to go there. You don't have to, but he is cheap and he can have good games. And if we look at the Flyers side, these are the two columns I look at the most: last 10 games and last 5 games. Mainly what I'll do is look at the last 5. If they're hot, I'll look at their last 10 to kind of see if they're sustaining that hot streak or if they're kind of cooling down from what they were doing in the last 10 games. One of my favorite stacks from this side of things with Philly is going to be their third line of Lindblom, Giroux, and Voracek. If you see 7 goals, 6 assists between the 3 of them over the last 5 games, 9 and 12 over the last 10. They're not shooting a whole lot, just 23, but they're able to score. With Giroux and Voracek, those guys are top line players normally. They just haven't really been hitting their stride this year and really been struggling. But they definitely have the upside. And on a small slate like this, I think we can take a chance with them. They're going to be probably one of my lower owned stacks. I don't love them, but Blackwood's kind of been struggling lately. He's implied to give up 2.5 goals. So I think that we can definitely target this game. But I'm a little bit more on the other side of it with the Devils. And I really like their top line of Kukunin, Zacha, and Strechikov. Probably definitely butchered that, but I'm just going to say Igor because I think that's how you say his first name. Mainly the wingers here. They're cheap and they've been producing. Igor here over his last 10 games, 28 shots, which is really good for his price. On both sides, and I think he's pretty cheap on DraftKings as well. I know Kukunin is 3.5, so he's mid-price on Fanduel, and he's 36 on DraftKings, and Igor is 4,000. So it's definitely good value there. And against Carter Hart, I definitely think that they can exploit that matchup and score a couple goals. I actually think the Devils can win this game. If you want to add in, so this is Igor's not on the power play, but I believe he's on the second power play unit, which would just be a bump for him. He'll get a little bit more ice time. If you need some more value on defense, you can look at a guy like Ty Smith, 8 shots, 6 blocks over his last 5 games. He's really cheap. He was doing really good earlier this year before he got hurt, and I think that he can come back. And another guy, Sami Vatanen, he was really good last year and the year before that. When he's healthy, he's kind of been picking it up a little bit lately. 18 shots and blocks over his last 5 games. It's a good floor for a guy who's, especially on DraftKings, he's only 2,700. So it's some really good value there. Other than that, with this game, I'm not too interested in any of these guys except for Shane Gostisbehere, 3 points over his last 5 games, 19 shots and blocks. He's really cheap too. He is 46 on DraftKings and he's 4,000 on FanDuel. I see that Flynn has him ranked pretty high on his FanDuel player ranking sheet, so we can definitely go there for some value. Other than that, got nothing else on this game. Moving on to Detroit at Nashville. Here, Detroit implied 2.5, Nashville 3.1. A little injury news: Roman Josi skated this morning. But he's still going to be out for a little bit. This is the first time he was skating in a couple of weeks. And Mikael Granlund is expected to be back for the Predators, and he'll probably slot into the second line and take over Pitlick's spot there. Goalies here, I think Saros is going to be very popular. He's coming off of 2 really good games, so I do have some interest there with him. And the Red Wings just aren't really scoring. On the season, 2.2 goals per game. Last 10, 2.7. Saros, like I said, has been really good the last couple of games. The Predators' defense still isn't that great, so he might not do that great, but the Red Wings aren't scoring, so it's definitely a spot that we can use for tournaments. I'm not touching Thomas Greiss. He's been awful and kind of shows that he needs that defense in front of him that the Islanders had last year, and that's why he was so good last year, just because the Islanders' defense is just way better than the Red Wings. For tournament purposes, I do like Detroit's top line if Saros does kind of fall. They got 8 goals, 6 assists, 34 shots in the last 10 games. It's not bad. They're all pretty cheap. They're definitely going to be a low-owned stack, and they're going to be able to let you stack Colorado or some of the other higher price stacks like Florida or Tampa Bay. I wouldn't use any of those guys in cash. I wouldn't use anyone from Detroit in cash. They're just way too volatile to use there. Then none of them really have a safe floor. But we see that Fabry here's got 5 goals over his last 5 games. 3 of them came with a hat trick night a couple nights ago. But definitely low owned, and they definitely can score a few goals here on Saros. With the Nashville side of things, I really like Eli Tovinen. Gets top line, top power play. He's very cheap. I think he's $3,900 over on DraftKings. And yeah, $3,900, and that definitely opens up a lot for your lineup, especially this good value piece. I like using him in cash because he's been really good on the power play. You want to stack Nashville's top line, Forsberg, Johansson, and Tovinen. I don't mind that in tournaments with how bad Greiss has been. I really like Alexandre Carrier. 22 shots and blocks over his last 5 games, which is absurd. He's really cheap still. 4,300, which on DraftKings might be a little difficult. Let's see what his price is on FanDuel here. Min price on FanDuel, really good FanDuel price for value. Matthias Ekholm, he's in play as well. He's been picking up the slack for Ellis and Yossi being out. If you want to look at Dante Fabro, you can. Doesn't get power play time, which kind of hurts him a little bit, but he's got 14 shots, 19 blocks over his last 10 games with 3 assists. So another cheap guy that you can look at with that one. I know some guys are going to say, I believe it's Eric Howell's birthday. I don't care. He's not good. Don't play him. Don't go into that narrative. Other than that, in this game, it's kind of a boring game, so there's not too much to talk about. One of the really exciting games on the slate here is going to be the Panthers at the Blackhawks. Florida is implied 3.7, Chicago 2.9. Chicago's been just awful. Their defense isn't good. They're not really scoring, so I really like Chris Dreiger. I think he is cash playable on this slate tonight since we don't really have a ton of cash options for goalies. And I'm just avoiding Kevin Lankinen. I was all over him earlier this year when he was playing really well, and now he's kind of hit a downslide here. He hasn't really been that great, and I'm just going to look at his stats really quick over the last couple of games. He's allowed 3, 4 goals, 2, 6. He's played some tough teams, but he has played Florida in 2 of his last 5 starts, and he's allowed 4 goals in both of those. And just the way Florida's playing right now, you can't really play any goalie against them just because they are scoring almost 4 goals in their last 10 games. And on the last 10 road games, they're scoring over 4 goals. So definitely Florida's going to be a very popular stack. I really like their top 6. And I think we can mix and match their top 6 guys. I love Barkov in cash. 9 points, 22 shots over his last 5 games is great. His price is coming up on DraftKings, but I think we can use him here. And with the value that we have, we can easily fit him and McKinnon in the same lineup and feel really good about it. You can pair him with Duclair or Verhaeghe. They've been doing really well with 27 shots over their last 5 games. So that line has 49 shots in the last 5, 8 goals, 11 assists. Barkov with the power play, and we see here, like, take a look at the Blackhawks penalty kill. It's worse in the league. So I think they're going to get some power play chances, especially because the Blackhawks are taking 3 penalties per game. So they could see 3, 4 penalties on the night, and I think they're going to score at least 1 on the power play. So if you want to do a power play stack for Florida, go Barkov, Ekblad, Huberdeau, Hornquist, and Yandel. I'm not really big on Yandel being on the 3rd line there, but he does get some power play time, and he's pretty cheap. I do prefer going to Duncan Keith on the other side in tournaments. Been a little bit safer of a floor lately. but not in cash. I'm not playing any of the Blackhawks in cash. If you do want to stack their top line, DeBrincat, Kane, and I think it's Camp got moved up to the top line, not Suter. You can run that. I don't hate it, but I'm not really going to be on much of the Blackhawks, especially for cash. The Panthers for cash, I pretty much like all of them. Hornquist is solid, Huberdeau is solid, Duclair's good value, Verhaeghe's good value, and then Barkov is one of my core plays on DraftKings for cash games, so I'm going to try to fit him in everywhere that I can, especially my cash lineups. If you want to throw in a Frank Vetrano, gets power play time. He's been really good lately, so I think we can take a shot at him in tournaments as well. If you want to stack up their third line, they got 24 shots over the last 5 games. Not awful, but Tippett and Vetrano both get power play time, so you can do a little mini stack with them. That's going to be probably less than 5% owned, which is going to be really good. Other than that, on that game, all over Florida. Definitely just keep playing Florida while they're hot. And we'll move on to the next one, Tampa Bay at Dallas. Tampa Bay is implied 3.2, Dallas 2.4. A few injury notes with this, especially on the Dallas side. Radulov is a game-time decision. Radek Foska is a game-time decision. Kurvianta, he's out for a couple of weeks, and they actually got Rupe Hintz back, which helps them out. And on the Tampa Bay side, Ryan McDonough is going to be out, so we'll have to look to see who is going to take over his spot. He was playing close to 22 minutes a game, so it's a lot of minutes that are going to be split up between Cernak, Hedman. Sergachev might get a few more minutes. Cal Foote might get a couple more minutes. Andre Vasilevsky, he's your cash goalie tonight. He's way too cheap on DraftKings at $8,000. He's less than Saros. He's less than some of the other guys. He's less than Johansson, which is absurd to me. And on a slate where we do have some value, you just play the best goalie on the slate. He's the safest. He should get the win. Dallas isn't really scoring all that much. And Anton Khudobin hasn't really been great. He's expected to give up like 3 goals tonight. I like that Tampa Bay has adjusted their top line to Killorn, Point, and Stamkos. And I hope that kind of rejuvenates their offense because they've been kind of hit or miss lately, but they do get scoring from all their mainly 3 lines, but their 4th line can do some damage too, and their 4th line's gotten a few goals over the last 5 games. I really like the Palat, Cirelli, Johnson line. They're going to be lower owned than the top line, and they've all been kind of struggling lately, but over the last 10, they've all been pretty good. I think Palat moving to the second line is going to hurt him a bit, but he still gets top power play time, so you can get that correlation on the power play with him. Dallas does play pretty good defense, so even though their goalie's not doing that great, I think we can take a shot at them in cash. I'm more leaning to them for tournaments, though. If you wanted to play a cash guy, you could play like a Yanni Gourde, who's got 5 points and 19 shots over his last 5 games. He's on the third line now, but he still gets power play 2 time, which kind of helps him out. And then if you wanted to look in cash, you could play like a Killorn, Palat, Cirelli, Gourde. They're a little bit cheaper. On the Dallas side, not really intrigued with anything. If you want to take a flyer at their second line, Robertson, Hintz, and Gurianov, I don't hate it. They're doing okay lately, just 3 goals, but 37 shots, which is pretty good. Miro Heiskanen, 21 shots over his last 5 games is really good for a defenseman. Gets top power play line. And I just think Tampa Bay is going to roll over Dallas. Vasilevsky's way too good. I don't think he's going to give up many goals here and should be able to block a bunch or save a bunch of shots. Dallas is still shooting almost 33 shots per game, so the volume should be there for him, and he should be able to make enough saves here. He could contest with the save bonus on DraftKings, but I think he's the best chance of getting a win on the slate. Let's see. Look at a question here before I go to the next one. Would not having Barkov, McKinnon, Cash be not ideal? What if we fit Scott, Grant, Kadri, and Yost instead? I wouldn't put 4 Avalanche in cash. It's kind of way too much for cash games. Right now, I'll tell you that my initial build does have Barkov and McKinnon in it. It's possible. If you want to fade McKinnon, it's very risky, but Nazem Kadri has been amazing, and his shots are up. So I think we can definitely play Kadri if you're not playing McKinnon. I prefer Mikko Rantanen over Landeskog, just with his recent production. Landeskog's been still really good, and he is a bit cheaper, so I don't hate it going there. I like everyone on Colorado, and that's the last game of the slate, so I'll get to that in just a minute here. I would say if you wanted to use Barkov and didn't want to play McKinnon, I would go like a Rant and Skog to get that McKinnon exposure. And Yost he's been really good. He doesn't correlate with any of them. He doesn't get power play time, but he's 26 on DraftKings and 33 on Fanduel. He's got 22 shots and blocks. So we'll get into that in a second here as we move on to the last game, which I just said, Avalanche at the Coyotes. Colorado implied 3.4, Arizona 2.2. They're both on the second end of a back-to-back, so they could be a little tired. McKinnon and Landeskog they scored 5 goals yesterday, and both of those guys did not really perform that well for their price. I think they both had like eight DraftKings points. I do think this game is going to be pretty high scoring. Johansson is projected to start on the back-to-back for Colorado, and he just hasn't been good with Buffalo this year. I mean, Buffalo's obviously a way different team to goaltend for, as they're not good at all, and they just bleed goals to opponents. So I think being on Colorado is going to help him a lot, and facing Arizona could be a bump. But there are some guys from Arizona I like, so I'll start on that side. Not interested really in these goalies. If you want to throw Johansson in a few tournaments, you can if you expect him to get the win. He's not a DraftKings play for me. He's way too expensive. I think he's 8,200. So I'm not even looking at him there. Not when you have Vasilevsky, who's $200 cheaper. But on the Arizona side, I think in larger field tournaments, we can stack up their top line. I think they're going to be a really sneaky stack of Keller, Schmaltz, and Garland, and then throw in a Jacob Chikrin. Chikrin's just way too cheap on FanDuel at, I think, 4,700. They still haven't gotten his price up. 19 shots, 15 blocks over his last 5 games. It's just way too cheap over there. On DraftKings, he's a little expensive, but I still really like him at 5,900. He's got the most shots and blocks at defense on the slate tonight, so it's really good floor for him. And facing Johansson, I think, is really going to help Arizona. If you want to look at Ekman Larson for value, not horrible. Top line Chikrin, my main ones there. For the Colorado side, obviously their top line is going to be extremely popular. I really like all of them. Rantanen's price is coming up, but he's kind of justified. He's been great, 9 points, 21 shots over his last 5 games, 8 goals, 6 assists in his last 10, and he's just a freak out there. And they're going to score probably a ton of goals tonight. Getting Cale Makar back helps them a lot on their defense. And he's got a goal and 3 assists in his last 5 games. So I really like Makar. Nazem Kadri has been phenomenal on the top power play. He has the same amount of shots this year as Rantanen and McKinnon. So he's definitely has that really good floor. His price is coming up. But if you do want to not play McKinnon, I have no problem with going to Kadri. You still get that power play 1 exposure. You get a lot less ownership. And if McKinnon has a down game again, then and Kadri scores a goal or gets a couple assists, and that'll definitely shoot you up the standings. You can look at Devin Taves too if you want. 20 shots and blocks in his last 5 games with 4 points. He's probably going to be a lot better with Makar next to him. Still gets some power play exposure. And that's pretty much it here. If you guys are DFS Army members, you can see my cheat sheet and Flint's cheat sheet for Fanduel and DraftKings. Take a look at our core. Take a look at our stacks. There's a lot of reading in the write-ups. Very important that you read it. Kind of give what I'm looking at with the slate, who I'm looking at for cash, who I'm looking at for tournaments. I don't want to give all that away for free. So you'll just have to join and become a subscriber. Save 10% with the code Mdell, and you can get all those cheat sheets and everything. But lastly, before I wrap this up, I will look at DK. First, we'll look at the stack chart. It's going to be hard to stack some of these guys, especially with them being kind of loaded in the same tier. The Panthers, you can at least stack their power play line, which is nice. The Predators, you can get their power play line. The Avs, I prefer McKinnon. He's going to be super chalky, but Rantanen has been a little bit better lately. So if you want to go Rantanen, Skog, Taves, McCarr, really good stack there. The Blackhawks, you can do a mini stack of their top line with Kane and DeBrincat. Tampa Bay is going to be tough here. Probably would prefer to go Stamkos. And then you could throw Palat in there, or you can just go to Killorn and get that exposure there for the top line. I prefer Stamkos over Point. The Stars is not really looking to stack, but if you want to, they're going to be super low owned. You can do a line one stack across the board with Klingberg and Heiskanen on the defensive end. The Flyers, you could stack up their first line, JVR and Farabi, and maybe you can go like a Provorov. I'm not really interested in these two guys, Hayes or Giroux, with the stacks, but Giroux's a good one-off in this tier that doesn't have like a ton of great options. The Red Wings, you could stack up their first line. Coyotes, you can use Garland, Chychrun, and Keller. And then the Devils, I'm not really interested in them for a stack. But here we'll look at the kind of the tiers breakdown by each tier. I'll give you my top plays in the tier. Tier 1, obviously it's McKinnon. He's going to be the chalk. But in tournaments, kind of rotate McKinnon, Rantanen, and Barkov. I'd probably leave Forsberg out. But if you're making 20 lineups, I would say get exposure to a couple of Forsberg lines, maybe two. Split McKinnon and Rantanen kind of evenly, and then throw in like 5 of Barkov. So I would say if you're doing 20, you could do like 12 of McKinnon, 5 with Barkov, and then all right, maybe a little less, maybe like 10 McKinnon, 5 or 6 with Rantanen, and go from there. McKinnon's obviously gonna be the chalk on that tier. Tier 2, my main guy actually would probably be Victor Hedman, just with his consistency. He's blocking, he's shooting, good matchup. Patrick Kane's in a little tougher matchup, but all 4 of those guys are in play. Kind of see where they correlate with their stacks in tournaments. Cash play, I'd probably lean on Hedman just because of the matchup. Kane's got a tougher matchup with Florida. Tier 3, I would say you're going to use Hornquist or Huberdeau for cash games. Palat's a good stack if you're using one of the Tampa Bay guys in Tier 2. DeBrincat if you're going to use Kane in larger field tournaments. Tier 4, it's really between Landeskog and Kadri for me. For those are the top 2 cash plays, kind of mix and match those two. Garland is a good tournament play. And if you're stacking Florida, you can go Ekblad. Tier 5, my favorite play is definitely Jacob Chychrun. He's just got such a good floor. And the matchup is going to be really good with Johansson in net. If you're stacking Tampa Bay again, Lauren with the top line, top power play like that. Devin Taves, if you're doing a Colorado stack and kind of want to be a little bit different here, but I think Chychrun's going to be the highest owned. So in cash, you're going to want to play Chychrun. Tier 6. Tier 6 is a tough tier. There's not really a ton of great options. For Hagee's probably going to be one of my top ones because I think Florida's going to score a ton. Arvinsson's been shooting a lot lately, so you could throw him in against the Red Wings because they're going to be pretty popular. It's a tough tier. Sergachev is kind of hit or miss. Klingberg's been hit or miss. I'd say Verhaeghe's probably my top play there. Tier 7, I would say it's going to be Cale Makar back with Colorado. Good matchup for him there. Weegar, if you're going to stack Florida. Anthony Mantha, if you're going to stack Detroit's top line. Like if you're going to play, where's he at? You're going to play Dylan Larkin in Tier 4. I don't mind going to Mantha. But Cale Makar is going to be my cash guy. And then followed by Weegar. And you can throw Gord in there too if you're stacking up Tampa Bay. And then Tier 8, I like how Fabry's been playing. I like Fabry. I like Vetrano. It's tough for cash. Provorov is probably one of the better cash options with a good floor, decent consistency. Phil Pronek should be able to block a ton of shots. He's got 80% consistency rating for 5 points, which is really good. It's kind of it for there. I'll be in Slack to answer questions for you guys. If you have any, nice short little pod today with just 5 games. If you have any questions, tag me at mdelagnes14 in Slack, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions for you. Good luck tonight, and let's crush those leaderboards.